Bourbon, cookies. Hey everyone, it's Molly from the Feedfeed. It's holiday cookie season and we are gonna be making some toffee and brown butter chocolate chip cookies. So I have sort of a reputation around here for making my life more difficult and being a little bit extra with my recipes, and this really lives up to that reputation. But it's worth it, okay? So we're browning butter, which is gonna add nuttiness. It's gonna give the cookies like this really, really nuanced flavor, a richness. We're gonna be making some homemade toffee chips for a little bit of crunch. We are adding pretzels for a little bit of saltiness and texture. And we're adding a whole bunch of chocolate. Standard dry ingredients, all-purpose flour, some kosher salt, baking soda. We have our little mini pretzels here. We have 10 ounces of dark chocolate we're gonna chop up, 2 eggs, some bourbon, vanilla. We have 3 sticks of unsalted butter, some brown sugar, granulated sugar. We're gonna use it 2 different ways, so I just have it divided out, but we will get to that in a minute. So the first thing we're gonna do is brown off our butter. So we're gonna throw 2 sticks of unsalted butter into a medium heavy bottomed saute pan. And whenever you're browning butter, you want to use a light colored pan. If you use something like non-stick that's black on the bottom, you're gonna have a hard time sort of telling when it's brown. So I always like to use a stainless steel or maybe like a skillet that is white on the bottom. So when you brown butter, all you're doing is basically toasting the milk solid. So we are going to melt this butter over medium heat, and then the milk solids are going to start to separate out, and then eventually those are gonna start to turn a really deep golden brown. The whole process takes about, I would say, 5 to 7 minutes. So you wanna keep an eye on it because it can go from perfect to burnt very quickly. So the second component we need to put together before we start making our cookies is the toffee. So if you're like, what is this girl talking about? I'm not making toffee, I'm just trying to make a cookie. You can buy them. You can buy like toffee chips at the grocery store. I can like never seem to find them. You can definitely order them on Amazon, but they are like a standard ingredient you can find. So if this stresses you out, just like ignore me and buy them at the store. But it's pretty easy. So we have a stick of butter, more butter, and I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of water and half a cup of granulated sugar. And I'm just going to sort of leave this alone, let it work its magic for about 14 minutes. You're gonna see it sort of like transform throughout this process. We wanna heat it to 300 degrees, and the reason we wanna heat it to that temperature is that's the hard crack temperature for sugar. So that means when it sets, it'll break. It won't be like chewy or sort of like gooey like a caramel. It'll literally snap in half. Science! I'm not stirring this, I'm just swirling the pan every so often just to make sure everything is sort of heating evenly. And then we still have our brown butter going. You can see these are the milk solids that have kind of foamed out. Now we're just waiting for those to toast up. This is unadvisable to do both of these things at once. Everything's fine. So in today's episode of How Many Things Can We Do at Once, let's chop the chocolate. I got an eye, you see, I haven't walked away. So this is, again, 10 ounces of dark chocolate, and I'm just going to give it a rough chop. Of course, whenever you're chopping chocolate, you always want to use a serrated knife. And I like them pretty big. Like, I don't go much smaller than these nice chunks. Okay, now we're kind of getting here with the butter. You can see we've picked up some color on the bottom of the pan. And if you could smell it, you would know it's almost done. It has like this nice nutty aroma, almost like freshly baked bread. So this is looking pretty good. I had my thermometer, it beeped telling me that's at 300 degrees. So I have a sheet pan here lined with parchment, and I'm just gonna pour it. You wanna be really careful, obviously, whenever you're working with hot sugar. It can cause super bad burns, so you just work carefully. And I'm gonna kinda spread this out and then just gently tap it. I want to get out air bubbles and also get it into a nice thin and even layer. It takes about 20 minutes to get super firm, and you want it in a cold place. So I'm gonna just set it by the window and we'll bring it back in about 20 minutes. And now we have our brown butter, which I'm gonna actually throw right into our stand mixer, not to dirty another bowl. And I wanna actually use this at a semi-solid state to cream it with the sugar. So I'm going to throw it into the freezer for about 20 minutes and it's going to sort of firm back up like you had softened butter. Okay, so here is our toffee. You can see it's nice and solid, and this is the most fun part about this recipe. I'm just gonna let it smash into sort of like chunks.
Cool.
Something like this is a little bit too big to put in a cookie, so I'm just breaking them into a little bit smaller pieces. Okay, so here is our brown butter that was in the freezer for about 30 minutes. You can see it's not like totally solid, but it's definitely firmed up a little bit, and this will be perfect for creaming with our sugar. So to our butter, I'm gonna add 1 1/4 cups brown sugar, an additional 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and I'm going to let this cream for like 4 minutes. I want it to get nice and light and fluffy. Okay, so I'm gonna add in 2 whole eggs and also a little splash of bourbon, which is like totally optional, but it's the holidays. Some vanilla. And we're just gonna let this process for like 1 more minute. All right, so we're going in with our dry ingredients, which is, again, just some all-purpose flour, some salt, and baking soda. So now the goodies, we've got our toffee chips, our pretzels, and all this dark chocolate. Combine this all together. The mixer will also break down some of the pretzels a little bit and then some of that toffee, just so it's more bite-sized pieces. Okay, so our cookie dough is ready to go. I'm just gonna scoop them using this large cookie scoop. I'm gonna space them about 3 inches apart so that they have room to spread. So these are gonna bake for about 15 minutes at 350. And I'm gonna rotate the pans halfway through. Okay, our cookies are out of the oven. I just wanna show one little trick. So because we're dealing with toffee, you might get some like sort of uneven bits of cookie, but if you just take a mug that's like roughly the same size as the cookie and you put it around and you give it a little spin, it'll neaten up those edges for you. And just finish these with a little bit of flaky salt. All right, look at this. Oh my God. Oh my God. So good, super buttery. I mean, there's essentially 3 sticks of butter in this entire recipe, so you know it's not gonna be bad. The dark chocolate with like the salty pretzels, a little bit of crunch. Yum, and messy and worth it. So head over to thefeedfeed.com to get the full recipe for these, bake them for someone this holiday season, tag us, show us what you're making. And big thanks to GE for outfitting Feedfeed Brooklyn with GE Profile Smart Appliances.